Welcome to Ask the Expert on AKCtv, where we bring you the top experts on dog health, training, grooming, and more. You ask it and we will answer it. I'm Marissa Sarback. Thank you for joining us today. In today's topic, it is so hard to make time to train your puppy. But according to AKCtv dog trainer and Family Dog magazine contributor Kathy Santo, it is easier than you'd think. Now, she's got some tips for finding hidden time to train your puppy. And we've also got Dory, an 8-week-old golden retriever puppy, to help us demonstrate. And isn't she cute? If this is your first time watching the show, sending us your questions is very simple. Just go to facebook.com/American Kennel Club and comment below on this video. So we'll be talking all about puppy training today, but Kathy can also handle any of your training questions, so don't be shy. We are all here to help. Kathy, very excited to have you with us today.
It's great to be back.
So we want to talk about hidden training time. What is hidden training time?
Hidden training time is the time you're already spending with your puppy when you're teaching them things that you probably don't want them to learn, like pulling on the leash and jumping up. And I think there's a myth that people think you have to set aside 20 minutes or an hour a day to train your puppy, and you actually don't. You're already doing the training.
So that really is just showing that hidden training time is encompassing all training time.
Anytime you're with your puppy, there is hidden training time.
All right. Can you train your dog when they are in crate time?
You can. So most people, when the dog is in a crate or even gated behind a little pen, they let the dog out when the dog is jumping around and getting excited. And what the puppy learns is when I act wild, I get what I want. And that goes for a lot of different things. And so what we start teaching them is when they're calm, they get the freedom to come out. And then as they get older, we build in a sit into that process.
So you want this to be a positive experience then. When they're in the crate, and you don't want them to think it's a bad thing. You want them to think it's a good thing.
It's a great thing. And when you go in there, you get things that you don't normally get, like certain toys and maybe bully sticks. And when you come out, you have to be calm to access that. And so many times I think that people build the rewards backwards. They build the reward for coming out of the crate because they're really excited, but I want to do it in the reverse. I want to build the reward as being in the crate.
And when they're good in the crate and say you want to take them out for a walk, what about putting the leash on and off?
Okay, so let me do a little demo here with my friend Dory. So this, again, a perfect example of hidden training time. If I'm going to interact with the leash and collar, I'm going to teach the dog to do it in a calm fashion, because normally when dogs get their leash on, they get wild, like, we're going for a walk. And I want her to say, oh, the leash is on. Can I have my cookie now? So I'm going to unclip the leash and feed her a cookie. And then I'm going to clip it back on, and I'm going to feed her a cookie. So her expectation when she hears this bolt isn't, oh, start running around and acting wild. Her expectation is stay close, and we're going to get something even better.
Is it important to always use food, maybe when they're a puppy, and then do you ever transition, Kathy, into using something else?
I do, because when they're puppies, you don't have that relationship yet, and they're pretty much just walking stomachs. And when they get older, though, I do transition to primarily toys, because the engagement and the relationship I'm building with her ends when I let go of the cookie, and chewing and digestion take over. But when I'm playing a tug toy, I can teach her an on and off switch of excitement, and I can also control it a little bit better. So she needs me to play with that toy. She doesn't need me to digest the food. So yes, we will transition eventually.
Although Dory's very focused on the food right now, so you can tell she's invested.
And this is hidden training time too. She's by you, she's not jumping up, and she's getting reinforced with food for staying in a nice sit.
And she just is completely paying attention to what you are doing.
Correct. I am the human Pez dispenser right now.
That's okay. It works. It works. And what about when you get that leash on and you want to take Dory for a walk?
Well, because I've taught her that when you have the leash on, sitting gets you the best stuff, I'm not going to have a dog who drags me to the door. And when I'm on the walk, I'm going to make sure that the most important thing and the best thing is always me. So a lot of people have problems with their dogs lunging after dogs or squirrels or bikes, and that's because they just go out and they disconnect from the dog. There's no engagement. So the minute we go through the door, I would probably say her name, Dory, and she'd look at me and come running, and I'd give her a high-value treat, probably better than her kibble, something that could be better than the environment. So maybe I'm going to use some chicken breast. And then I'm going to say her name, then I'm going to ask for sit. So throughout that whole walk, I'm creating a training session, which is really the hidden training time that people don't know about.
So you're going for that walk anyways, and that's why I guess you call it hidden training time.
Exactly.
When we do want to remind everybody also that if you're watching on Facebook, please comment below. We want to take those questions on the American Kennel Club's page, and we want to ask those for Kathy. So, but Kathy, when you are going on this walk and say the dog sees another dog, like you said, or even another human, and they want to go over to that human, what would you do?
So if I have to say most of the time I decline interactions with dogs because I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're going to be like, and everybody thinks their dog is nice, like they all think their kids are nice, and so
not
like,
all
oh,
of them
my
are.
dog, right? And then the puppy gets into an interaction, and it's not good. So if the puppy sees another dog, and it's this age, brand new, I'll show the dog a cookie, right? I'll put it right on her nose and say her name and turn her, which is then going to create, oh, there's the dog, where's my cookie? So I'm going to create that look back to me. If it's a person, I would probably sit on the floor like this, I'd probably hold food, and the person would be petting the dog. But I don't do a lot of that too because I'm really cautious about over socializing, because what I worry about is I'm going to get a dog who goes on a walk and looks for every person in the whole world to interact with, and they're going to disengage from me. I also worry about puppies getting handled too much and then thinking that people aren't really cool. It depends on the personality of the puppy.
So if somebody does ask to pet your puppy, is it different from when somebody would come up and ask to pet an older dog?
Yeah, and you have to know your puppy. So I am this puppy's advocate, right? So let's say I know she's going through a fear period, or she's just naturally cautious of people. And somebody said, can I pet your puppy? What I wouldn't say is, oh, she's going through a fear period, so no, because I know that people don't accept that answer. They're going to say, all puppies love me, or I have a puppy, or I know it's just going to be time out of my life I don't want to do. So I'm probably going to say, you know what? Normally I'd say yes, but she just threw up. I'm going to take her,
And
because nobody wants to
touch
pet
that
that
puppy.
Exactly.
There you go. And so would you consider this mealtime right now because she is eating, or is this just more hidden training?
Yes, this is her lunchtime.
Okay.
And so I'm leveraging what she wants into what I want, which is I'd like her to sit quietly in a new location and not be pulling and barking and acting like a lunatic.
All right, that works for us because she's been great.
Yes.
And so for meal times, would it be different in training in any way?
Yes, so the first thing I want to say about meal times is that I typically will take their meal and I will make sure that I train with it. So rarely will I give this dog a bowl full of food because, again, I want to leverage what she wants into what I'd like her to do. So a lot of people think that, oh, I have the solution. My dog learns a sit stay. It'll sit for the bowl. I put it down and I release them. But it's really not a solid sit stay. It hasn't been proved. There's just a lot that has to go on. So I would show her the bowl and I'd lower it to the ground. And then when she sat and stayed there, then she could have it. Now with her, just the sight of the bowl is super exciting, and she's not trained yet to do this. So to make it easier, I might have one kibble and I'd move it a little bit. And then if she stayed, yes, I'd give it to her. I'd probably do this with her, yes, with an empty bowl, because with the food in it, it's just way too exciting. Once I get a dog who sits for the food bowl going down, then I'm gonna make it harder. I'm gonna change locations, I'm gonna change the duration. Maybe before I let her go to the bowl, I'll ask her to down too. So you've gotta constantly mix that up. You can't sit for years and years with a dog who just sits for the bowl and is released to it, because it's not a solid stay.
Would you say that mealtime is probably one of the most important times for training because it is such a reward-based activity?
It is. And people are like, well, I don't have time. Well, you need to get up earlier. So I'm up at 5:30 because I have a puppy, and I'm training with the breakfast. You know, you could also change up the times a day to make it easier for you. So if you can't train it at 6 a.m., maybe train it at 8 a.m. But I leverage the food throughout the day, and so maybe their meals are a little bit lighter because there's bits of training that happen throughout the amount of time the puppy is awake.
And we want to talk about names too, because, well, Dory has a very cute name.
Adorable.
And what about names? When you say the word Dory, how should she be reacting, and how often should you use that name?
So, and you've got to teach your family this too. Most people use their dog's name for everything. They're like, Rover, 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 and they use it in anger too. So when they say Rover angrily, and the dog is like, oh, that's a negative, then when you try to do it behind the word come or before the word come, the dog is like, that's a really bad word, I'm afraid of it. So when I say her name, Dory, yes, good girl, I want something good to happen. So either it's Dory, yes, good, it's kibble, or it's a game, or it's me running away and you chase me. Like, I'm trying to build engagement. I don't want her to worry about her name at all. Dogs think their name equals lost because a lot of times people say it and then take something out of their mouth or put them in the crate. So I try not to add their name to things that I know the dog is going to think is a negative.
So, and this is something, I know you were talking about family and friends. What else is it that family and friends can do that maybe impacts the training that either they don't realize or maybe something they should be doing?
They need to know what your rules are, and everybody's rules are different. So if it's okay for your dog to come on the couch, they should know that, but if it's not, they shouldn't. They should also know about the name. Don't say it unless you can back it up with something fun, because they will ruin the name. And just get them to be on board with the whole training process. The worst is when the puppy jumps and people are like, I don't mind. And you're like, no, I mind.
And we've talked about that before.
Oh,
yeah.
It's from the beginning of time, it's probably been happening.
Is there a point in time when maybe the puppy, say you get that dog at like 2 or 3 years old, is it too late to be doing this kind of training?
Absolutely not. You just start out as if it's a puppy. Because you're probably going to give it a new name, right? Most of the times, if it's a dog that maybe came to you from rescue or somebody else, maybe you're going to rename it. Well, you're going to do the name game. And it's a good idea to do that to build new positivity behind the name, because you don't know what that dog thinks of its name before you got it. Now, quick point out here, she's sitting, I'm not holding the leash, and she's being very good and not lunging towards her food bowl. And, even when you're on TV, it's hidden training time.
Absolutely. I mean, she really is learning a lot. You could see even just in the beginning of the show, she was moving around a lot. And now that you're down there with her, she's focused on you. She's waiting to see what you're going to do next.
And she understands the game. The game is stay on the floor and you'll get good stuff.
Even at 8 weeks old, she's
Yes.
quite smart. All right, we do have our first Facebook question. John says, my bearded collie puppy is really hyperactive. How can I get her to stop pulling when we're walking?
Okay, bearded collies, they are so bouncy and energetic and enthusiastic.
Yes.
I mean, all puppies are, right? But especially the beardies. So I teach the puppies to walk on a collar. But when they're this age, the owners find it hard to manage all the training that I want to have happen when they're just taking them out for a potty walk. So what I'll tend to do is I'll tend to tell people to put the dog in a harness for potty breaks. And then I don't blow all the training I'm doing behind the scenes on the collar. In addition, if the dog is pulling, it's telling me that the dog sees the environment as more interesting than the owner. And so that's when you start walking with higher value stuff, like better treats or toys, and start engaging the dog, because I bet there's no engagement between the dog and the owner. And I'm talking like every 5 steps, I ask that dog to do something.
Just so it's completely focused on you.
Yeah, and people think I'm crazy. I'm walking down the street, I suddenly run the other way with a puppy and they're chasing me. Like, I don't get really far.
You're like, I know what I'm doing, okay?
If I wear a jacket, it says my name on it, we're good. But otherwise, they're like, wow.
People wonder what you're doing, exactly.
Exactly.
So when would you say puppy training transitions into training for an older dog? Is there a specific age, or do you kind of feel it out with each individual puppy?
It's pretty individual, right? So there's some puppies who come to the table and they're 5, 6 months old and they are together. Like, they have great ability to focus and duration, and you're like, I'm not going to hold you back. And then there's some puppies who are silly. For example, I have a boxer in one of my classes, and he's 8 months old and so silly and bouncy, and we're not going to put any pressure on him to do things longer or more advanced, because he's just not ready. And you have to sort of check the emotional readiness of your dogs before you start pushing them.
How young is too early to start training?
The minute you get them, like,
really?
Probably when they come out of the womb, too young. But when I get them at 7 or 8 weeks of age, we go. I mean, because again, it's that interacting with the puppy. How I interact with this puppy teaches it how I want it to go from there on.
So Dory probably is at that perfect age of where you want to start training.
Yes, Dory is at an amazing age. And just even coming here, there were so many new experiences she had. And getting her to sit on a street that she's never been, and her saying, wow, you're really fun, and that looks interesting, but I'm going to default back to you. That's just really important.
And especially New York City, because even for people, there's so much stimulation. So for dogs, it really can be even more so.
Right. And so again, I don't mind that she looks at things, but I'd like her to know that I'm better than the environment.
So if I want to make sure that I'm helping with Dory's hidden training and not hindering it in any way, if I wanted to pet her, would I ask you? How would I go about it?
Yes, you'd ask me, and then I would say to you, well, let's see if she wants to be petted. Because a lot of people say, can I pet your dog? And the people go, yeah, you can pet my dog. But I want to know what the dog says. So the way we find that out is you just put your hand out flat and let her sniff it. You put it down lower to her. Good girl.
Aww.
So what do you think she said?
So she saw me and she wagged her tail, but then she went right back to you.
Correct. And so that's so important to acknowledge, and probably because I have high value food here. And so we then gave her a really good experience because she said, hey, and then moved back to me. A really bad experience would be me not knowing that, and she moved away and you dragging her back to you and pulling her and forcing her to have that interaction. That would hurt her environment when she's with other people. She'd be like, oh, people force me to be held or to be petted, and I don't like that. So
if you have one negative experience with the dog, is that really going to shape a lot? I mean, or
it depends. If they're through a fear period, yeah, you can have something that impacts them seriously. But dogs are going to change from minute to minute. So if I give you this cookie, show her that you have it. Yeah, now look who she wants to do it, right?
Oh, she went back to you for a second.
So she's like, the environment. Yeah.
Go.
The environment changed, and so now you're pretty interesting. And if I gave you the bag of treats, you'd be really interesting. But that's the 5-second rule I tell people. If they're petting a dog, pet it for 5 seconds and then stop.
Okay.
And then if the dog comes to you and snuggles and clearly wants more petting, like she does not right now, then you could pet. But if she's saying no, thank you.
She's
and that's
saying,
fine.
I'm more focused on Kathy because Kathy has the food that I want.
Right. And she's saying, let's get back to work.
Right.
And so you honor that, and you don't hug her, and you don't kiss her, and you don't restrain her so that she actually likes people. And it's just like anybody. If you know people and they understand who you are as a person, you're going to have a better relationship. If you understand what your dog wants in the moment and they understand that, you're going to have a great relationship.
And then it's going to help the owner too, because they're going to feel more comfortable about having you around their new puppy.
Correct. We're not going to hide the dogs from people then. We're like, oh, dog is sick, she can't come out. After dinner, I'll let her out when you leave.
All right, our next question is in from Cindy. She says, I have read that puppies don't have fully formed bones, so how much training or exercise is enough or too much?
And it really is a good question. Puppies' growth plates don't close until 12 to 18 months, depending on the breed, depending on the size. And so my rule of thumb is I won't let them play with a dog who's more than 5 pounds bigger than them when their growth plates are still not fully closed. And so, a dog like this, as she changes, she's going to have more friends because they're going to be bigger because she's getting bigger. But as far as the exercise, there is a good chart, and I have it in my school. But the rule of thumb is you're not taking this puppy on a 1 mile run. Absolutely not. A nice little puppy walk and back, and then check with your breeder, check with your vet, see what they recommend. Because if I don't know the dog and I'm not seeing it, it's hard to make a recommendation.
But it's probably a little bit different than training at a mealtime or crate time. That you can probably do at any point.
Oh, you can train. I'm just talking about the exercises, right? I'm not going to take this puppy on a big 1 mile hike or a run. It's just they'll get there. But I can wear this dog out mentally by training more than I can taking it 5 blocks around town, because the dogs can be physically tired, but still they can be mentally like, I want to go. So when I take them on a walk and I'm physically and mentally working them, they come home and they sack out, which really is the best puppy time of the day.
Absolutely. Cheryl has our next question. She says, excuse me, easy to find time to train. You take the puppy out to potty on the way back into work and sit for 3 minutes. Just take a few minutes every day. That goes into your hidden training time, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. The secret is when you're with the dog, they're learning something. And the question you ask yourself is this something I want him to learn and go forward doing his whole life, or is it not? So yeah, the taking the puppy out to the potty and sit, and then you change it up, right? So you do the sit, and then maybe tomorrow I'm going to work on downs, and then the next day I'm going to work on play. So you just keep changing it and challenging it, and the puppy's going to love being with you versus just getting out of the house and checking with you later.
All right. Anything else, Kathy, before we close it out for the day?
I want people to know that puppies are little sponges. They need to be worked. And there was a myth a million years ago that you shouldn't start training until they're 6 months of age. Not true. The minute you get your puppy, start building the relationship with training, and the training is going to go so much faster.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dory. You were a great guest. All right. That's all for today, everybody. I'm Marissa Sarback. Thank you for joining us today. Next week is National Animal Poison Prevention Week. And here on Ask the Expert, we'll have our Chief Veterinary Officer, Dr. Jerry Klein, on to walk us through the common household foods and items that can be toxic for your pet. And tune in every Tuesday and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time to AKC Dog Center, where we bring you the latest dog news from the American Kennel Club. Be sure to download AKCtv on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire. Also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. AKCtv, sit, stay, watch.